In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a DIY dolly for your camera. Not to be confused with the do-it-all-for-you dolly from the Santa Claus.
Leave her out of this.
Don't you burp me, don't you change me.
This will help you get those smooth and cinematic shots that will wow your viewers. You might think you need a lot of expensive equipment to achieve those large, sweeping camera movements that you see in movies and TV shows. But the truth is, you can make your own dolly system with some simple materials and tools that you probably already have at home. And the best part is, it will only cost you about $100. I'm Josh, and I built this DIY dolly for our church a few months ago. We've been using it ever since, and it's really improved the quality and variety of our live stream shots. Take a look at some of the footage we captured with it. Pretty cool, right? Now, this type of setup is not for everybody. If your live stream is a little more simple and you don't need a lot of camera movement, then you might not need a dolly at all. But if you want to add some dynamics and excitement to your live stream to make it more engaging and immersive for your viewers, then a dolly can be a great option. And don't worry, it's not even very hard to operate. Even if you're new to camera work, you can learn how to use the dolly in no time. It's just a matter of pushing or pulling the platform along the track and adjusting the angle and zoom of your camera as needed. Nothing a little training can't teach. So why did I decide to DIY a dolly instead of buying one? First of all, it's fun. I enjoy making things with my hands, and I like the challenge of finding creative solutions to problems. Check out this video of one of my favorite DIY projects, the $5 tally lights I made for our camera operators. Secondly, it's cheap. A professional dolly system can cost thousands of dollars, which is way out of our budget. But with some PVC pipes, wood planks, rollerblade wheels, bolts, clamps, I was able to make a functional dolly for a fraction of the price. And third, it's customizable. I was able to design the dolly according to our specific needs and preferences. For example, I had to consider things like how easy it to set up and tear down, how much money can I spend on it, how long should the track be, how can I mount it on a railing instead of using tripods. So with all that reasoning out of the way, I'm going to show you how I did it. The first thing I did was measure the length of the railing where I wanted to place the dolly. I decided to make the track about 10 feet long, which gave me enough room to get some pretty wide sweeping shots, but without taking away too many seats from our auditorium. Then I bought two 10-foot PVC pipes from Home Depot to act as the rails for the dolly. I cut 3 pieces of 2x4s, each about a foot long. These would be for the supports for the rails. I drilled 2 parallel holes in each one, and then drilled some holes in the PVC that lined up with them. Then I drilled bigger holes through the other side of the PVC in order to actually access where the nuts and bolts were going to go. I ran some bolts through those holes and fastened everything together. It's really important to make sure that everything is exactly parallel here during this step, because if it's not, your dolly will come off the rails when you start moving it and it just won't be good. For the dolly itself, I ran through a few different ideas on how to attach the wheels. A traditional track dolly has the wheels kind of at an angle so that they go around the track. That's definitely the ideal way to do it, but a little bit harder to DIY. For this prototype, I instead decided to level out the wheels and make sure they were wide enough to go around the edges of the track. I drilled some holes through some 2x3s, ran a long bolt through, and fastened my wheels on either side. Once I made 4 of those, I cut out a square piece of 3/4 inch plywood and fastened the wheel assemblies on the corners, making sure they were parallel. Then I attached this raised bowl mount to the center of that board. That allows me to attach my tripod head and level it out. Finally, I painted everything black because, well, you know. And that's it. Now let me show you how it works. On a Sunday morning, we set up the dolly on the railing and clamp down the 2x4s with some squeeze clamps. This keeps the track stable and secure while we're moving things. Then I put a couple more spring clamps on the ends to act as stoppers. These won't do much, but they'll at least slow things down that you could stop and catch the dolly yourself if you hit the end. Then we place the dolly on the rails, connect the camera to our switcher with an SDI cable, and we're ready to roll. Literally. We can move the platform along the track by pushing or pulling it gently with our hands. By mixing up the speed, direction, and focal length of our shots, we can really capture a lot of different angles with this setup. We can zoom tight or stay wide, move quickly or slowly, and even add some vertical panning to create all sorts of variety. The possibilities honestly are kind of endless. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this DIY dolly is not perfect. It has some real pros and cons that you should be aware of. The biggest pro, as I've already mentioned, is the price. This dolly is so affordable and accessible, and you don't need a lot of money or expertise to make it. Plus, if it breaks or something gets damaged, you can easily replace any of the parts with minimal cost. Another pro is the flexibility. You can make this dolly as long or as short as you want, depending on your space and your particular needs. You can also change the size and shape of the platform depending on the camera and accessories that you have attached to it. For example, I made sure to leave some space here for our battery pack and SDI converter to fasten directly to the dolly. Finally for us, it's the portability. This dolly is so light and easy to set up and tear down. It doesn't take a lot of time or effort to get it ready for use, and it doesn't require any power or batteries to operate. As for the cons, the biggest one is the actual smoothness of the shots. Make no mistake, this dolly is not as smooth as a professional one would be. The rails aren't perfectly straight, so there's some bumps and curves along the way. The wheels aren't very wide and they're not angled, so they can kind of wobble or slip off the rail sometimes. These factors can affect the quality of your shots, especially if your camera or lens don't have any stabilization features. You might see some jittery or shaky footage, which can be distracting and annoying for your viewers. There are some ways to mitigate this. Make sure the rails are as straight and level as you possibly can. Make sure the wheels are aligned and tightened properly, and the platform is centered and very secure on the rails. And make sure the camera is mounted firmly on the ball head so there's no shake there. And finally, try to use a camera or a lens that has some built-in stabilization if you can. Another con is storing it. This dolly takes up a lot of space when it's not in use. The rails aren't modular, so you can't take them apart or fold them up, which means you have to find a place where you can store a 10-foot long PVC pipe. The last big con is compatibility. This dolly is not designed to fasten to a tripod or any kind of stand. You'd need to make some modifications to this design in order to do that, and I can't personally vouch for how stable or secure it would end up being. Whenever I end up building version 2 of this dolly, and believe me I will, there are some things I'd probably do differently. I'd try to make cleaner cuts in the PVC pipes so they look nicer and fit a little better. I'd use better and wider wheels and set them at an angle more like a traditional track dolly would have. This would make the movement smoother and a little bit more stable. Finally, I'd try to add some sort of dampening with springs or something like that in order to reduce camera shake and wobble. But overall, I'm extremely happy with how this dolly turned out. It works really well for our needs and our budget, and it adds a ton of value to our live stream. If you want to make your own DIY dolly, feel free to follow my instructions and modify them however you want, based on your preferences and specific needs for your church. For example, you can change the size of the platform based on your camera and accessory needs. You can use different wheels in order to make the stabilization a little bit better and maybe make them angled like I mentioned before. You can make the track longer or shorter based on your space requirements. And you could maybe even use different materials for your track and platform. You might want to use metal pipes instead of PVC or some sort of plastic boards instead of 2x4s. The important thing is, 1, you have fun, and 2, you create something that improves the overall quality of your live stream. Remember, this type of setup is not necessary at all for everybody. It's just an option that you can use if you want to spice things up and make your live stream more interesting and engaging for your viewers. If you need some help with your live stream setup or strategy, I'm here for you. Use the link below to sign up for a live stream review, and I'll do my best to help you out. If you end up building this dolly or you have questions about it, make sure to leave a comment and I'll try to get to it as soon as I can. Until next time.